Okay, here I'm showing the push-up. This is the correct start position. So as you can see, I'm on my tiptoes, legs nice and long, back in a neutral position with the head in a neutral position beyond the hands. I'm using the line between the two mats as a guide for where to put my fingers. So I try and treat my upper body as a triangle, with the head being the tip of the triangle and the fingers being the bottom of the triangle. As I go through the movement, the aim is to keep the head and the spine and the hips in a nice straight line. So when you get to the bottom, I'll just pause it on this one, everything should come down to the ground at the same time. So the hips aren't hitting first, they're touching the ground at the same time as the chest and the same time as the nose. Here you see a common fault where instead of having the elbows tucked in at a rough 45-degree angle or even closer to the body, you can see that they're out parallel with the shoulders 90 degrees, and actually the elbow is beyond the shoulder, which is quite an uncomfortable and unsafe position for the shoulder to be in. Also not the best recruitment of the chest muscles or the shoulders of the triceps either, and it can cause a little bit of a strain on the shoulder girdle itself. Here I'm just going through where the elbow should be, again, which is, as you can see, instead of travelling out to the side of the shoulder, they're more tucked in. Okay, here is another common fault where the elbows are in a much better position, but as you can see at the top, the spine is no longer in a neutral position. It's sagging down towards the floor, and it's in a more anterior tilt, causing a little bit of stress and strain on the lower back muscles. You can see that my hips are a good bit lower than my shoulders, and the chest will touch the floor, but there is not a lot going on here in the core muscles, apart from overuse of the lower back area. Again, this is just showing the correct spinal alignment, where I'm going to get a lot more out of my core area, glutes as well. Okay, here the issue is the neck and the head not being in neutral position. So instead of trying to get my body to the ground, I'm almost sort of cheating by headbutting the floor or pushing my head down to the ground. The elbows are not great either, but what I'm trying to highlight here is the movement across the head and the neck. It's not particularly safe and it's not particularly effective. And then back to a correct push-up, you can see that the head is in line with the rest of the spine. And then lastly, I'm just showing that the hands are really wide, which there may be variations that are safe to use with a wider position with the hands, but generally speaking, a good traditional push-up should have the hands closer to the body, where the elbows can track in a safer position away from the shoulder. Here is a useful regression for people that are almost up to a full press up, but not quite, and are finding off the knees pretty easy. It's basically focusing on a slow eccentric full press up down, and then a push up off the knees on the way up, and the shape is exactly the same as a full press up. Here it's off the knees, eccentric and concentric, so we're regressing it even further. This is just an example of a bad push up off the knees, where the hip is directly above the knee and there's not a lot of awareness of the spine and the pelvis, and again the elbows are going into an awkward position. So instead of that, if the issue was that the client or yourself wasn't strong enough to achieve the correct shape, then a good regression from the push-up off the knees would be to maintain the correct shape and the correct alignment, but bring the floor closer to you. So instead of me having to get my chest all the way down to the ground and going halfway, I would say don't look to the mirror, keep your head in neutral. I only have to go halfway and I'm tapping my chest off. For pads, you could also make that higher. Here again, it's just an example of a correct push-up. Hopefully this little video's helped highlight a few little faults and how to correct them and what to look for.